War. 5 years ago, Michigan's observance of this catastrophic event in our national history began with the showing of the Emancipation Proclamation at the Henry Ford Museum. Throughout the country, and especially here in Michigan, there have been reenactments that have been held throughout each year over the last 5 years. There have been new books published, television programs and documentaries, library and museum exhibits. In the past 5 years, in America, we have enjoyed an amazing resurrection of our Civil War history. I now pass this mic over to my good friend, John Gibney.
It's a reproduction of what was passed out in the 1860s to the soldiers, 64, 65.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the historic part of this. You have to remember, we're talking about Appomattox as the culminating event.
It's a free reproduction of what was passed out to the soldiers in 1862, 65.
Robert E. Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia, and at that point, the Confederate armies started to wonder whether or not they should salute too. As you watch what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about the events leading up to the very end of the war that we're going to reenact today. But one of those events included the people of the 4th Michigan Cavalry. The 4th Michigan Cavalry was a very, very enjoyable group. The 4th Michigan Cavalry, in fact, had one of their members named Werner. Mr. Werner came back home and invented probably the greatest ginger ale any of us have ever had, Michigan's Werner's Ginger Ale. And it's one of the ones that actually has medicinal qualities to it. Those men were out looking for the only vestige that was left of the Confederacy, and that was Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis had run all the way from Richmond down through North Carolina. He met with operatives in that area trying to figure out whether or not the Confederacy could cross the Mississippi and continue into Texas. There were even talks about possibly meeting up with the Mexicans and fighting the war from there. Jefferson Davis was a man on the run, and the 4th Michigan Cavalry was dispatched to find him. They went all the way down to Macon, Georgia to try to find where this would happen, and there were reports coming in from slaves, escaped slaves who were now free men, talking about whether or not Jefferson Davis was in the area. They crossed a pontoon bridge on their way and just missed being caught by some of the Yankees in that area. If you watch over by where we have the shots going on, it looks like Jefferson Davis is there with his wife and family. The 4th Michigan is coming up, firing shots. Jefferson Davis is trying to get into the woods. It looks like the President of the Confederacy has been caught. Surely this is the end of the Confederate government. Here comes the cavalry reinforcements. Certainly with the surrender of Jefferson Davis and several members of his cabinet, this would be the end of the Confederate government. The cavalry is coming in to try to find out whether this truly is President Davis. There were rumors that he was absconding with over $10 million worth of gold. The gold was never found. But Jefferson Davis was taken prisoners with his family. It looks like they're putting him in manacles at this point. Shackles and handcuffs. And the President of the Confederacy, captured by Michigan troops, is going to be led away to prison. He'll be right out in front of you. You can see this now. Here comes the President of the Confederacy as a prisoner of the federal forces of the United States, captured by Benjamin Pritchard and the 4th Michigan Cavalry. You can certainly see this is Jefferson Davis as he walks by. He's despondent, feeling bad, certainly that what his life's work for the last 4 years, and certainly the many, many years in federal service, has come down to. The President of the Confederacy will wind up in Monroe, Fortress Monroe in Virginia, and spent 2 years in prison. Interestingly enough, the United States only had one prisoner that they executed, and that was the commandant of Andersonville prison camp. Jefferson Davis, fortunately, was not put to death, and we had an opportunity to bring the country back together once he returned.
Come on, move.
I moved any faster.
Oh, yeah.
I moved very fast. Kind of hard to walk with your hands behind you.
This one, this here.
President Davis is now a prisoner.